Alright guys, have to come back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Just touched down in Texas, checked my phone, and honestly, couldn't really believe what I was seeing. I thought it was going to be bad against Thieves today. I did not expect it to be quite this bad. Plenty to talk about today, as always, with this OpTic team. It doesn't seem like anything is changing anytime soon, and genuinely, Kenny's performance today, in many respects, one of the worst we've ever seen. Not just in the CDL, but genuinely in the history of competitive Call of Duty. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new, as always. Appreciate this is a few hours later than it would otherwise be, but just checked into the Airbnb here in Dallas, and yeah, I mean, like, a wild day, to be fair. The flight was hectic for sure, but we made it, and by the time I landed, as I say, like, the match is already done, so, like, I'm not going to go through these games as if I was watching every single moment. I've watched back a fair few highlights, and obviously we have some key points still to discuss regardless. This is Nastie. We talked about it earlier today. It was a long time ago for me, but he was talking about the drama with Zuma over the last couple of days and the drama with Octane and everything that's been happening with that show. And Ben says, I said some awful things last week, and I owe you all an apology for that. Obviously, he was in the Zoo Mafia community here. It's kind of apologising for the sheep comments, the low wage lifestyle or whatever he said comments. And Ben's like, look, I feel like I'm a punching bag sometimes, but I've got to lock in, is effectively what he was saying. And Fella had an interesting reply to that one as well. I see it from both sides. Maybe we can move on, but it's probably only a matter of time until we get a bit more drama on this. This is from Zed. I did want to mention it today because I thought it was relevant. Last year, and even Slasher, I think, was in the reply to this as well after his dominant performance against the Miami Heretics. We'll get into in a few minutes' time. But Zed was talking about last year's drama on the Boston Breach. You guys might remember Zed was the coach, right? He was, top guy at the team, but we know that maybe there was a bit more going on behind the scenes. And Zed basically says, sitting on my back porch, dog next to me, beer in hand, thinking about that one time a roster change was made on my team without me knowing about it, and I was the head coach. Head coach of what? So, rumor had it anyway that Doug Sensamartin was pulling the strings to some degree last season. Now, we also had this, the first series of the day, Toronto played Surge. As I say, I didn't watch this series to give you guys the massive rundown, but we do have the breaking point numbers to have a look at. Map 1 was an Abuzah masterclass, but I think Toronto, at least looking at this series, they Neslo'd them, first of all. And it's one of those series that Toronto were delivering back in Major 1 when their Search and Destroy was really solid, and they weren't necessarily so good at the other modes. Look, I still think Surge won't come away from this series too frustrated, but of course Search and Destroy is a massively important mode. And look, Neptune, Abuzah, the entire Surge team had a great couple of performances in the hard points, but in the Search, again, certainly the map 5, Insight 9-2 for the win, JoeDeceives 7-2 for the win of the Protocol. So it's just notable because Surge, we know their respawn is great, it's still very solid, but if they want to win a tournament, if they want to take down Thieves, if they want to take down FaZe and actually win the whole thing, Search is just massively important, right? So we'll see how that trends for them, but a great win for Toronto, putting them 5-2 for the stage. That locks them up a very tasty seed going into Major 2 in Dallas, coming up rather shortly. But let's talk about OpTic, right? Because, I mean, we've got to do it again. What else do you want me to talk about? There is literally one big topic right now, and it's going to stay this way until something changes. When OpTic fans saw this map set, I imagine they probably weren't too, disappointed with it, right? Look at this map set. Hacienda hardpoint, maybe OpTic's best hardpoint. Hacienda Search should be pretty good for OpTic on paper, and then Vault Control. Okay, I'm not massively impressed by OpTic's Vault, but they do seem to like to play it, so okay, fair enough. But the Hassi hardpoints, this was the map where, let's not forget, they dropped, Scrappy dropped 6 kills against OpTic back in the Major 1 qualifiers when they had Hook on the team, and it was the Game 5 Search that OpTic won against Thieves in that run of qualifiers when Kenny had the 1v2 in the round 11. That feels an awful long time ago. So the series gets underway, and unfortunately for OpTic and for Kenny, it was a very familiar story, map 1, when they started off not looking too bad, and then Kenny had just a horrific end to the map 1. This is one example. I just don't understand what's happened to his POV, really. This is the thing that I just don't get, because if you go back and watch old Kenny gameplay from a couple of years ago, this guy's nice. Like, the talent is genuinely undeniable if you look at his history and his career. I don't know why it looks like he can't shoot straight now. I mean, there were so many moments like it. I'm sure that the pressure isn't helping because obviously he's under immense pressure. He's YYing, he's sprinting more than maybe he otherwise would. Moments like this when he thinks the guy's in the corner, he goes to pre-throw it and dies. It's like, I've not seen a worse POV than this. Like, with all due respect to King of Body, I wasn't impressed by his POV during the Falcons run at Major 1. I thought every time I went to, King of Body's POV, it looked like he was about to get world starred. It's like that, but worse for Kenny right now. And he goes on these just unimaginable death runs as well. And this meant, by the way, that Zuma was a happy man because he kind of escaped the curse. Going back to the Major 1 loss to Ravens, OpTic after that first map loss were 4 in 23 map counts. And of course, it's got worse since then. So look, people are going to say, oh, well, the Falcon series, it does count. It's a legit series win. Okay, fair enough, whatever. Count it if you like. But it doesn't really change the reality, does it? That they have been on a horrific run of form for a very long time at this point. Are they the worst team in the league? I mean, I guess you can't justify that because at least the Falcons, they did beat the Falcons, but the Falcons are ahead of them this stage. The Falcons have 3 map wins this stage, and they're ahead of OpTic because they have 0 in the regular qualifiers. This was Dan Ghosty with a 1v3. I mean, look, the first kill, certainly interesting. Shotzzy gets caught out in the corner. The decision-making, really, like, I'm not saying that it's ideal, really. Okay, he's going to wallbang Pred. Maybe there's not that much that OpTic could have done differently, but I still feel like the way that they played it maybe in the 2v1, maybe could have given it a better go here, OpTic, but it's just one of those rounds. This was the round, though, that Octane was getting particularly annoyed at, right? Because it's one of those rounds where you can't lose it, right? 3v2 advantage, maybe to get back to the game for 5-4, and here's Pred roaming around the map. Now, where is he going? What's he really doing here, right? Like, he sprints around, he eventually gets guns, and Octane wasn't really happy with it because he's on his own in no man's lands, and he's getting killed for what? The bomb was down, 30 seconds to go. He didn't, I don't mind the play to hit the flank necessarily, but if you're going to hit the flank, don't get caught. That's, the #1 goal, is make sure you don't die and maybe time it better so you're not going to be in that position. And all of a sudden, they lose the round. I mean, even then, after Pred died, it felt kind of unlosable. 2v2, 25 seconds left, but Thieves retake it with ease. That is vintage, what OpTic Texas are doing at the moment, and there's really no other way to put it. Pred, I mean, you can see his reaction here. It's just difficult to watch. It really is difficult to watch. I don't fully understand it. There was this moment as well in the control. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. This was getting clowned on, though, because Kenny and Pred are both looking exactly the same way in the control. HyDra jumps down for the top window and just shoots them both in the back. Like, what else do you want him to do? Someone's got to look somewhere else in this moment. But I know people were saying that Pred can't rely on Kenny getting the kill, so he has to watch the same way. And look, whether that's true or not, it paints the picture, right? That OpTic are feeling, they have so low confidence in their own gameplay and their teammates' abilities, it seems at the moment, that it basically forces further errors, really. This was some of the OpTic reaction on the watch party. Look, Scump obviously has his thoughts. Hex was talking about it a lot. Zinni had his perspective. But it's depressing for all OpTic fans right now. And look at this. Kenny was 2 in 16. He actually ended up, I think, 3 in 17. But 2 things here, really. First of all, how is it possible for Shotzzy to be 6 in 9 in a control? I don't really know what he was doing. But it's not on Shotzzy, this at the end of the day. What I don't get is, we expect Kenny to play badly statistically, right? He's been doing that for some time. I'd have thought that at least in one series in recent times, Kenny might have just locked in and, just decided he was going to play for kills that series or something, right? Like, you'd have thought, surely he could play for some kills and drop a 0.9. Surely it's possible. But instead he manages to drop fewer kills in a control than a search and destroy. He has 3 in the end here, and it sets him up for the lowest KD of the Black Ops 6 season, obviously, of the CDL, full stop. And honestly, it's down there with one of the worst series we've ever seen in competitive Call of Duty. If you actually look at this, I think the KD ended up being a 0.31 or 0.32 actually. So he did escape the 0.31 category. We'll get back to these numbers in a second here because, I mean, these are the overall worst ever series. We're talking 0.31, 0.31, 0.32, 0.33. I mean, even Dashy back at the, Ghost Champs is kind of a name that lives on in infamy. Mudog is here as well at a 0.32. That's where Kenny slots in, right? He slots in at a 0.32 KD. It's, bonkers, really. And in the CDL era, by far the worst. This is Scump's chat. Obviously, they're talking about potential changes to be made. I don't really know what to think about it, but it almost seems like they're just running it down, right? I mean, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, this idea of, oh, are they not changing because the ring ceremony's coming up, they don't want to blow it up before then? And my gut instinct was like, oh, surely not, right? If they're going to make a change, they'll do it. But now it's tough to imagine there's much else going on here. And this is just bonkers, right? Like, this isn't just they are the first team that won the World Championship to do X. They are potentially the first team ever to fail to win a map in a run of qualifiers, right? Because they've played 6 series in the qualifiers. Let's exclude the minor, just talk about the qualifiers. They've played 6 qualifier series. They're 0-18 map counts. They have 1 more to come against Gentlemates. Surely you'd think they can win a map there. But they got 3-0'd by Miami the other day, and Miami just got slammed today as well. So, I mean, what else do we even need to say at this point on this team? As Sky says about it, this is sad to watch. Those guys are all way too good for it to be like this. Whether there's a little, you know, running undercurrent in Sky's tweet to say, pick me up, guys. Like, maybe that's your solution that you need. But look at the numbers, right? Okay, congrats to Thieves, fair play. But, like, they don't even really get much credit as far as I'm concerned, because Pred's got a .77. Dashy, I mean, look, as I say, I didn't watch the series as a flight, but from watching a couple of highlights of it, it seems like Dashy, at least over the last couple of weeks, feels like the only guy who's really putting in 100%. That's how I see it anyway. Shotzzy, I don't think, well, I mean, I want to say he doesn't deserve too much blame, but he did do those tweets in January that have jinxed the team beyond belief. So I think that's kind of just where it is. And obviously FaZe and many others were doing some entertaining tweets on this as a result. So that's where OpTic sit. And again, they played Gentlemates on the Sunday. Intrigued to your thoughts in the comments section below. Just before we finish then, here we go. Ravens, they played Miami. What a result, honestly. Slasher, look, I was a big fan of this Ravens team when it was first formed. I had my questions on their hard points during the first part of the season for sure, because they were winning a lot of their series in Search and Destroy. Not so much the case nowadays, though. I mean, have a look at this one. The Vaults game 1, they beat them by 50-odd points, slammed them on the Hassie and the Search, and then beat them on the Control. Slasher had a 1.97 KD. And this is, you know, look, it's a surprise that he's got a 1.97 for sure. Like, anything near what JoeDeceives had the other day against OpTic, against a team that isn't OpTic or Falcons, is very, very impressive. But also, I'm not that surprised that Slasher's still delivering. Over the last couple of seasons, we've often compared accuracy, Slasher, Clayster, these type of like OG AR players. Slasher's always seemed the one to me that like still has the level. And on FaZe, I think he was good. On Boston last year, he was good, but the season didn't last for him, right? So, you know, I think it was inevitable that he would come back and do a great job, but this well is pretty impressive. For Miami, though, Rencor and Real are just like their best players by some way, and Lucky and Metals have kind of been nowhere near. Metals, I think, has been especially underwhelming, really, as of late. So we'll see. Maybe Miami are just land merchants, but 2-4 getting 3-0 tier, not what they wanted in terms of making sure they're going to lock up a winner's bracket seed. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.